everybody, welcome back. We are Property Couple.
I'm Leah.
And my name is AK.
And we have been property investing for 2.5 years now.
And we're just sharing our journey from the day we started all the way through to now, and hopefully further into the future as well.
Today's video is all about property investment strategies in the UK.
So the first one is buy to let, and this is the most common one. And it really is what it says on the tin. So you are purchasing a property with the intention of letting it out.
So it's totally different from buying a property as your main residence that you're going to live in. You go and get your mortgage, you buy the property for the purpose of renting it out. Exactly like you just said. Why is this strategy good, and why do so many landlords go for this strategy?
Super common strategy, but for really good reason.
It's a solid base to any investor portfolio. 5 million plus buy-to-lets in the UK. Usually buy-to-lets are let out to families or individuals on a lease for 12 months. This means for the landlord that there's not going to be a high turnaround of tenants. Their property is likely to be better looked after than, say, an HMO.
And that brings us on to the next strategy, HMO, House of Multiple Occupancy. Now, essentially what this means is that a home is rented separately in terms of the rooms. You can either have one home that has one AST, but the rooms are rented out separately like a student home, or you can have each individual room that has its own AST, and maybe the people don't know each other, you just need a room. But essentially this strategy is really interesting because it allows you to increase your profit and your yield, and there is definitely high demand for it. When you leave home, I mean, you and I have lived in multiple HMOs, whether you're working locally, if you don't necessarily have a family, those types of people, really benefit from just having a room with all bills included.
This is the strategy that we've been documenting on our channel. So if you're new here, then you can definitely click on the cards. I don't know which side the cards are going to be on, and you can watch our before and afters of the HMOs that we've been working on.
If you haven't already, remember to hit that subscribe button. It's absolutely free. It doesn't cost you anything, but it does help us out.
And click on the notification bell to be the first person to get an alert when we upload a video. As AK said, it's a really, really popular strategy because for the same house that another investor might turn into a buy-to-let, you doing HMO might be making 3 or 4 times as much money from the same property by going down the HMO route. So it's definitely one to look into if you are using other people's money or if you're just looking for a higher cash flow.
I think, what's important to say about that one on the opposing side as well is that the wear and tear is usually higher in those types of properties. The turnover of tenants is usually a lot higher as well.
And also, there's so many ways you can go wrong, and the council can be on your back if you're not doing things properly.
Yeah, and I think there's something to note as well is various different types of legislation when it comes to HMO, and depending on how many rooms there are in the property as well, anything over 5 requires an HMO license, and anything over 6 then requires planning permissions. There's various different legislations, but we won't get into that today.
Okay, so the next strategy is something a little bit more creative, and it's called rent to rent. This strategy is basically where an investor approaches a landlord and says, I will take on your property and provide you with a guaranteed rent every month of, just say for example, £2,000, and then that investor goes themselves and fills those rooms or that property, making more than £2,000 hopefully, and taking the cut in the middle whilst guaranteeing the rent to the original landlord. So with this strategy, you don't actually own the property, you are renting it to rent it.
It's quite a common strategy because you don't need a lot of capital, starter capital, to get into those particular deals, because you are looking for distressed landlords that don't want the headache of managing their property. And say I'm the landlord and I say to Leah, listen, I've got these properties, I really can't be bothered, they give me a lot of grief and stuff, but if you take them off me for 5 years at this agreed price, then I will do that. Leah then goes away. She might tidy the property up, for example. She'll do all the marketing, get the tenants in, and then take essentially the difference there. So it's really effective, and it's a very common strategy.
One thing that's worth noting with this strategy is that although it sounds really straightforward, there are loads of legalities and things that you would need to have in place before going ahead with something like this.
What I would say is please make sure you understand exactly what you're doing with this strategy, because there are a lot of legalities, like Leah said. Now there is a link down in the description box which points you towards property education company that Leah and I actually studied with. So if you are interested in doing this professionally, please check that link out.
So the next strategy that we're going to talk about is social housing. So what is social housing? Social housing is housing provided for people on low incomes or with particular needs. And usually this housing is provided by the government or by housing associations. So a landlord watching this, or prospective landlord, might be thinking, why is this good for me? Why could this be an opportunity for me? Take it away.
Yeah, it's a really interesting strategy because these local housing associations or councils offer guaranteed rent for a start. So they will take the property off you generally on anywhere from maybe a 2 to 5 year, sometimes even longer than that lease. They will guarantee your rent. They will guarantee the payment of all your bills and the maintenance, and actually they will also have to give you the property back as you gave it to them in that sort of state. So it's a very, very good strategy. It's a very, very hands-off strategy, and if you get it right, it can be, you know, very profitable. You are providing housing to a market that really desperately does need it as well. And
I think the statistic is that over 4 million homes in the UK are under the social housing bracket. There is clearly a demand for social housing. That is a lot of homes. It's just under 17% of homes in the UK. And also there's a huge waiting list for people that need housing within this sector. So the demand is there, and I suppose for any property investor, the first thing that you always learn is to buy for demand. So if there is an opportunity for you to buy a property and hand it over to a housing association that then can guarantee you the rent because they are filling it with social housing tenants, it's, like you said, a fairly hands-off, armchair investing sort of strategy. However, you've got to have a bit of a reputation, I feel, to get into this strategy.
Yeah, I don't really feel like it's the sort of strategy that you would start off with, per se. You have to show that you are a professional landlord, and as we sort of keep talking through these strategies, we're going through more advanced strategies as we go along. So what I would say is there is, you know, legislation, there is things that you need to be conforming with, and again, just a little caveat there to make sure you are doing this professionally.
So the next strategy that we're going to talk about is lease options. What is a lease option? I feel like this phrase floats around the internet so much in the property space,
and it's not that common, you know. I don't think a lot of people understand what a lease option is. It's more common in the commercial sector than it is maybe to the residential sector. But this strategy, it blew my mind when I learned about this strategy, because it allows you to control the property without owning the property, but still be able to generate an income from it.
So,
and
go ahead.
And the option to purchase the property, not the obligation to purchase it.
I guess an example of this could be, we want to buy a property and there is a distressed vendor over here, but we don't have all of the money right now to buy this property off them. This person could be in financial difficulty. Maybe they can't keep up with the mortgage payments anymore. Maybe they've gone into negative equity. So we offer to buy this property, but with delayed completion. So this is an example of a lease option, because we're going to purchase this property, but not right now. So we're going to legally control it, perhaps rent it out, generate cash flow from the property that covers their mortgage, and eventually, if we want to, we can buy that property. It's all written up in like a heads of terms where you agree something, they agree something, a solicitor writes it up all fancy. It's called a lease option. We don't have any lease options in our portfolio. However, if we got one, we would definitely tell you about it.
And I think another thing to note as well is that with a lease option, it is trying to create a win-win scenario. So when somebody is distressed and they maybe are not keeping up with their mortgage payments, the last thing they want to do is then have that house taken away from them. So there are two options. Either the house gets taken away from them, for example, or somebody can offer them a lease option where they can purchase the house, they can look after and babysit all of their liabilities, their bills, their mortgage, which allows that person to then go and find other accommodation. Then the purchase of that house, you'll have the option to purchase that house in X amount of time, essentially. And that's, you know, very sort of loose terms of what a lease option is.
If anyone does want to hear more about lease options, we actually have a really great mentor we work with who is the G when it comes to lease
like
options.
The lease option
He
king.
knows all the different types of lease options and has done all of them. And he's a really, really inspiring person to know, very, very knowledgeable. So if you are interested, comment below and we'll try and get him to sit down and do a video with us on the channel, because he's definitely the person to talk to.
The next strategy, and probably one of the most, shall we say, prestigious strategies, commercial property. Everyone loves a bit of commercial. Yeah, I'm doing commercial property, mate, yeah.
I mean, it's definitely something that after a few years of doing property, you kind of move to that commercial space and, you know, it feels like it's a level up.
Yeah, commercial property essentially is anything that can be used for business activities. So it could be an office, it could be a care home, it could be shops, yeah, anything like that.
There's so much opportunity to be had. Within the commercial property umbrella, you've got things like freehold, leasehold, lots of lease options within commercial as well, commercial to residential. There's all these different ways of creating cash flow or creating big profit, and it's just a huge, fairly, I'd say, untapped market, because your everyday property investor is not looking to commercial.
I think it's definitely a much more advanced strategy. So there's a lot more opportunity to get involved with commercial property. However, with that being said, you know, you need to have a certain level of experience, definitely. However, the potential to earn profit is huge within that sector.
It's a whole different ballgame to residential property purchasing, but the key learnings are all the same. The numbers work in the same way. It's definitely one for a few more years as well down the line. I hope that we can be doing more commercial deals that we started looking at, and hopefully we'll be sharing soon on this channel.
Also, land probably comes into that as well. There's an element of commercial with that. We probably won't go really into detail with that, but essentially buying land and developing on top of that is within that commercial umbrella as well. And that becomes even more niche, because, you know, even less people are doing that. I think there's, you know, huge potential for commercial now in 2022 with everything we've seen with the pandemic and things like that, and we're probably going to see a lot more in the way of commercial units maybe being, this is my opinion, a lot of commercial units being converted to residential, things like that. So, you know, there's a lot going on there.
One thing to tie all of it up is that lots of these strategies can be like intertwined and interlinked. Buying commercial space, disused offices, and then turning it into social housing, and like tapping in on a lease option. So all of these things kind of can work well in tandem with each other, and I guess that's why property can be very exciting, because you can learn all of these strategies and get very busy. But for us, it was about learning first before sort of taking action. So that's why, if anyone's wondering why we point you towards the education company that we train with, just because we found so much value in that. We
probably spent the best part of a good 12 months really studying a lot of these strategies, really understanding them and things like that. So yeah, it was
definitely not an overnight thing.
It's not an overnight thing.
Before we bought our first deal. But yeah, please do check out some of our other videos if you're interested in our journey, and we hope to see you over on our Instagram and TikTok as well for more property couple content, and we'll see you in the next one.
Don't forget to subscribe
and click the notification bell to be the first to be notified when we upload. Take care and see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.